Well, so far, the UN Security Council is generally pleased with the results of the ceasefire in Lebanon, but members stress the need to get an international force in place as quickly as possible. However, U.S. Ambassador John Bolton believes a new UN resolution may be needed on disarming Hezbollah and a weapons embargo.
It is impossible, indeed dangerous, to divorce the two issues. If the international community applies only a temporary Band-Aid solution to the problem and allows Hezbollah to regroup and rearm, then the suffering of the people of Lebanon and Israel may very well intensify in the near future.
At the heart of that lasting solution, and at the heart of Resolution 1701, is the need to pursue the twin objectives of Lebanese sovereignty and Israeli security. We need to achieve both if we are to deliver a lasting peace.
More demands for an emergency government today. Minister Yaakov Edry, who's responsible for Cabinet Knesset relations, called on Prime Minister Ehud Olmert to form a national emergency government. Edry wrote in an urgent letter to Olmert that building the IDF, addressing social gaps, and facing the Iranian threat required an emergency government comprised of all the Zionist parties. Despite the Edry letter today and calls this week by Knesset Speaker Dalia Itzik, a national emergency government may not be so easy to assemble. Joining me now to discuss what some MKs are calling unprecedented political stagnation just 3 months after general elections is Knesset correspondent Dan Diker. Dan, welcome. Easier said than done? I mean, how hard is this going to be?
Well, we're in a very strange situation, Yochanan. Just 3 months after general elections, we're already in a international emergency situation in terms of this war, which by many accounts is not yet over, even though we're in a break. And yet the government does not seem able, by all indications that we've seen over the past days, to cobble together a national emergency government, because faction leaders in the opposition are much more prepared and ready to fire out at Olmert politically than they are to save him. They see a mismanaged war. They see that you have 3 separate commissions of inquiry. This is not a government that can coalesce around any particular external threat, which traditionally has been the what's called the raw material that actually creates unity, even temporarily, in governments. We don't have that here because the national emergency, in the minds of many potential national emergency coalition partners, the national emergency was created by the very mismanagement by this current government. They don't want to be a part of that. They see it as the mark of Cain. This government is stained, and many people would prefer to wait this out and see what political developments happen going forward.
Well, as you say, the Prime Minister under fire from within and without. Just how hard a task does he face if he chooses to try and expand his coalition?
Well, we may be in an unprecedented situation for the first time ever in Israeli political history since 1948 and the founding of the state, that 3 months after general elections, the ruling coalition has very little, if any, wiggle room in order to expand, enlarge, or have a coalition replace this current coalition. And the reason is that the government has actually hogtied itself, also from left and also from right, meaning that the 2 main issues that they say in Israel, the 2 flags that this government coalition was founded upon, are 1, convergence in the West Bank, and number 2, a socioeconomic platform that was the main reason that the Labor Party became the senior coalition partner. Both of those issues, for all practical purposes, are now irrelevant for the moment. Therefore, on the left, Meretz Party and the UTJ, the United Torah Judaism Party, would not join because they're not going to support major budget cuts to socioeconomic programs or yeshivas in the case of UTJ. And on the right, you already had Netanyahu saying last week to Dalia Itzik, who made a personal approach to him on joining a government, as well as Avigdor Lieberman, not to mention the National Union, that there is no way, after publicly declaring convergence going forward, that is the Prime Minister declaring it, that they're going to join this type of coalition. So it's going to be very difficult to expand the coalition, at a time when that may be absolutely necessary in order to save a government that's only 90 days old.
The Israelis who were affected by the war on Lebanon set up solidarity tents outside the Israeli government headquarters in western Jerusalem. The most vocal protesters were the reserve soldiers who alleged that they were sent to a poorly managed war lacking specific goals. Rima Mustafa monitored this demonstration and prepared the following report.
This is David Tatarsky, a retired reserve soldier who ended his military service after the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982. Tatarsky has been sitting outside the headquarters of the Israeli government in western Jerusalem for 1 week. He said that the latest Israeli war on Lebanon was a failure and demanded that Israeli military and political officials resign.
My message is that the people who were responsible for the biggest Israeli failure in the past 60 years are the Army Chief of Staff and those who decided to go to such a war without having specific goals. The Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and Dan Halutz should resign and go home.
When Tatarsky started this demonstration, he was the only one, but today tens of Israeli reserve soldiers have joined him to protest the way this war was managed. They are demanding answers. Day after day, different segments of Israeli society who are affected by the war and who accuse the Israeli government of failure are setting up more solidarity tents.
We were left there and no one knew how to get us out. We did not know anything and I simply believe that they forgot about us.
Reserve soldiers are the most vulnerable segment of Israeli society, especially during war. Amidst talks about the possibility of future Israeli military deployments, it appears that they will continue to stage sit-ins until they achieve some of their goals. From the Israeli government's headquarters in West Jerusalem, Rima Mustafa, Al Arabiya Television.